You are not stuck. You're just comfortable in your limitations. Most people don't realize that the prison they live in doesn't have walls or bars. It's built from habits, beliefs, and excuses that feel safe. They wake up every day to the same routine, complain about the same problems, and convince themselves that change is impossible. But it's not. The truth is, deep down, they don't hate where they are enough to do something about it. It's easier to adapt to mediocrity than to confront the discomfort of transformation. And so they lie to themselves. They say they're stuck. They say they're unlucky. But the reality is, they've just become too comfortable surviving at 40% of their potential. When you're stuck, it's not because the world has stopped you, it's because you've stopped pushing. You've stopped believing that there's more inside you. You've accepted a version of yourself that was never meant to be permanent. That comfort zone, that soft routine, it's not your home, it's your cage. If you want to break out, you don't need a miracle. You need movement. You need decisions. You need to do the hard things you've been avoiding. Growth never feels good in the beginning. It feels painful, uncertain, even embarrassing at times. But if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. Stop telling yourself you'll change when the timing is right, when life gets easier, when motivation hits. That moment never comes. You've got to build the momentum yourself, with or without permission. You were not born to live quietly and die full of regret. You were built to evolve, to lead, to dominate. But you can't become that version of you if you're still in love with ease. Being stuck is just another word for being afraid to let go of who you were. Discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you're meant to be. Without it, all your goals, all your dreams, all your potential remain locked behind a wall of good intentions. Everyone says they want to be better. Everyone claims they're hungry. But very few are willing to wake up early, to say no to distractions, to do the work every day, especially when it's boring, painful, or inconvenient. That's where discipline comes in. It's the muscle that separates men from boys, leaders from followers, winners from talkers. Motivation is a wave. It comes and goes. But discipline is the engine. Discipline shows up when you don't feel like it. It executes without negotiation. It doesn't care about moods or excuses. It's the invisible grind that builds confidence, sharpens skills, and creates unstoppable momentum. If you're not where you want to be, look at your discipline. Look at how often you choose short-term comfort over long-term greatness. Because the best version of you isn't waiting for the perfect moment. He's waiting for you to earn him. And the only path to that version runs through discomfort, repetition, and self-control. What if the only reason you're not winning is because you keep stopping? You start with fire, with energy, with plans and excitement, but somewhere in the middle, you lose focus. You break the momentum. You chase motivation like it's fuel, when in reality, it's your biggest trap. The truth is, success doesn't demand perfection. It demands consistency. Not once in a while. Not when it's easy. Every single day. It's the boring work, the repetition, the grind no one sees, the commitment when the applause is gone, when the results aren't showing, when it's just you in the mirror asking, "Are you still about it?" Most people quit because they want instant feedback. They want overnight results from seeds that take seasons to grow. But the ones who rise, the ones who transform, they understand that greatness is a product of daily execution, not intense, sporadic effort, but deliberate consistency that builds silently until one day everything changes. Consistency is power because it rewires your brain. It tells your identity. This is who I am now. Every day you show up. Even when you don't feel like it, you're casting a vote for the person you want to become. And over time, those votes stack. They shape your character. They rewrite your story. You don't need to be the best. You just need to be relentless. You don't need to know everything. You just need to keep showing up. Because discipline compounds, the effort adds up, and one day, the version of you that felt impossible becomes normal. That's how evolution happens, not in explosions, but in silent persistence. Self-respect isn't built in the gym, in a suit, or in front of an audience. It's built in private, when no one's watching, and you still choose to do the right thing. It starts with the promises you keep to yourself. Every time you say, "I'll wake up early, I'll hit the workout, I won't waste time on distractions," and actually follow through, you're proving to yourself that your word means something. But every time you break that promise, you weaken your own trust. You start seeing yourself as unreliable. That's where low confidence is born. Not because the world doubted you, but because you kept showing yourself that you can't be counted on. You can't lead others if you can't lead yourself. And leadership starts with personal accountability. People think confidence is about external validation. It's not. Real confidence is earned through internal alignment, when your actions match your words. When you can say, "This is who I am," and your behavior confirms it. That's how you build a bulletproof mindset. Not from talking big, but from delivering. Day after day, no matter how small the win. That's how you separate from the average. Because average people lie to themselves. High performers don't. They make promises, and they honor them, especially when it's hard. That's where real power is forged, in the moments when it would have been easier to quit, and you didn't. In the moments when no one would know if you slacked off, and you didn't. That's the version of you that becomes undeniable. What if I told you the people you surround yourself with are silently shaping your future? That every time you share your dreams with someone who doesn't believe in them, a little piece of that dream dies. The truth is brutal but simple. The people around you either elevate your standards or normalize your excuses. You become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If they're lazy, you'll slow down. If they're negative, you'll second-guess yourself. If they play small, you'll shrink your vision just to make them comfortable. Energy is contagious. Mindsets are transferable. If the people around you are making excuses for why life is hard, why success is rare, why growth is painful, you'll start echoing their beliefs without even realizing it. But when you're surrounded by winners, by people who demand more of themselves, you rise to meet their energy. You're forced to level up, not because they pressure you, but because their existence reminds you of who you could be. Most people are too afraid to make cuts. They keep low-level people in their lives out of guilt or fear of being alone. But growth requires isolation before elevation. You need to be willing to walk alone before the right circle forms around you. Your standards determine your circle, and your circle influences your standards. So the question is, are you surrounded by people who hold you accountable or enable your mediocrity? Do they challenge you to grow, or do they comfort you in staying the same? The people around you are either assets or liabilities. There is no neutral. Growth never feels like growth when it's happening. It feels like loss, confusion, pressure, and discomfort. That's why most people never change. They interpret resistance as a sign to stop instead of a signal to continue. But growth begins when you stop running from discomfort and start chasing it. You want to build mental toughness? Sit with the pain. You want to elevate your game? Stay in the hard moments. Most people avoid friction, but friction is where character is forged. The gym doesn't build muscle through ease, it breaks you down so you can rebuild stronger. Life works the same way. You're not growing unless it hurts. You're not evolving unless you're being tested. Comfort zones don't just kill dreams, they disguise decay. They make you think you're safe when you're actually stuck. Start seeking discomfort, not recklessly, but intentionally. Wake up earlier. Say no to temptations. Push yourself into spaces that demand more of you. Every time you lean into resistance instead of running from it, you're training your nervous system to adapt. You're rewiring your brain to handle pressure. And when that becomes your new normal, everything that used to feel overwhelming starts to feel light. That's how winners think. That's how high performers live. They stop chasing ease and start chasing expansion. Not because it's glamorous, but because it's the only way to access the next level of themselves. Have you ever asked yourself what's really driving your life right now? Vision or emotion? Because most people don't live by direction, they live by feelings. They wait to feel ready to start, to feel motivated to move, to feel confident to try, and in that waiting they waste years. If your actions depend on your mood, you'll always lose to the one who acts no matter how they feel. Discipline doesn't care about your emotions, and success doesn't either. Winners don't rely on motivation. They rely on a mission. Motivation is a spark. Discipline is the engine. The person who gets up and executes even when they feel tired, uninspired, or discouraged, they win. Because while everyone else is hesitating, doubting, or retreating, they are building, they are planting, they are compounding, and eventually they are rising. Control your emotions or be controlled by them. You can't let a temporary emotion make a permanent decision. That's how people ruin relationships, destroy opportunities, and sabotage their own momentum. You can feel the emotion, but you must act based on your values. Anger, sadness, fear, laziness, they're all real, but they're not truth. Just because you feel like giving up doesn't mean you should. Just because you feel unworthy doesn't mean you are. Emotions are not facts, and if you let them lead, they'll lie to you every single time. High performers feel everything you feel, but they act anyway. They master emotional neutrality. They learn to move with intention, not impulse. And that's what sets them apart. Most people don't have a life problem, they have an identity problem. They're stuck in loops because they still see themselves as the person who failed, who was rejected, who was broken. And every time they try to level up, that identity pulls them back. You cannot build a new life with an old self-image. Change who you believe you are, and your life will follow. It starts with your words. Every time you say, "I'm just not good at that," or "I've never been disciplined," or "I'm not that kind of person," you reinforce the cage you're stuck in. Identity is shaped by repetition. Tell yourself something long enough and your brain starts to believe it, even if it's a lie. So if you want to become the best version of yourself, stop saying things that keep you small. Speak like the person you want to become. Move like them. Make decisions like them. And over time, you'll become them. Real transformation doesn't start with strategy, it starts with identity. Because once you believe you are the kind of person who trains daily, works hard, handles pressure, builds wealth, or leads others, you'll naturally align your habits to match that identity. You won't have to fake it. It becomes your default. But the shift only happens when you stop looking at your past as the blueprint and start creating a future worth becoming. Your past doesn't define you. It only informs you. Who you decide to become today. That's the real power. That's the level where change becomes permanent. You've been taught your whole life to avoid failure like it's some disease. But what if failure is the very thing that's meant to shape you? What if the most successful people you admire aren't the ones who got it right the first time, but the ones who failed more than anyone else and just refused to stay down? Failure is not the opposite of success. It's the pathway to it. Every loss, every rejection, every time things didn't go as planned, it wasn't a stop sign, it was a signal. A signal to adjust, to improve, to come back sharper. Most people never win because they're too scared to look stupid. They want the rewards, but not the risks. They want the growth, but not the grind. But you can't learn if you're not willing to fall. You can't evolve if you're obsessed with playing it safe. The people who win are the ones who fall in love with the process, who fail, adapt, and repeat so many times that success becomes inevitable. Think about it. When did you grow the most in your life? Was it during the easy moments when everything was going your way? Or was it during the chaos, the setbacks, the heartbreak, the struggle? Pain is a teacher most people try to ignore. But if you listen, it gives you wisdom that comfort never will. Failure forces you to look at your weaknesses. It exposes the cracks in your game. And instead of avoiding that exposure, you should welcome it. Because every time you confront those flaws and fix them, you become stronger, sharper, more dangerous. That's how winners are built. Not in the illusion of perfection, but in the mess of progress. And then there's purpose. If you don't have purpose, discipline won't last. If you don't know why you're doing it, you'll quit the second it gets hard. Purpose gives pain a reason. It turns sacrifice into fuel. When your reason is strong enough, you'll walk through fire. You won't care about opinions, setbacks, or how long it takes. That's the kind of purpose that wakes you up early and keeps you grinding when everyone else is asleep. It's not just about money, fame, or proving people wrong. It's about becoming the person you were born to be. It's about unlocking your potential and refusing to die average, because deep down you know you were built for more. Most people never find their purpose because they're too busy chasing distractions. They're addicted to comfort, validation, and short-term dopamine. They want results without clarity. But the ones who rise, they sit with themselves. They ask the hard questions. They stop numbing the void and start facing it. And when they find that purpose, even if it's small at first, it becomes the fire that never dies. It gives direction to every decision. It becomes the foundation of their focus. And from that place, nothing can shake them. Not failure, not fear, not opinions, not fatigue. Because when your purpose is real, your path becomes non-negotiable. What if the version of you 5 years from now is desperately hoping you stop wasting time today? Every second you scroll, every hour you waste, every day you spend on autopilot. That's not just time lost, it's potential killed. Time is the one thing you can't buy back. You can rebuild money, you can rebuild relationships, you can even rebuild your body, but you can never rebuild time. And most people are bleeding hours like they're infinite. They wake up with no urgency, no intention, no direction, just reacting to life instead of building it. The clock doesn't stop because you're tired. It doesn't pause because you're confused. It keeps ticking. And if you don't start treating your time like it's sacred, you'll look back one day and realize you traded your future for entertainment, for procrastination, for comfort that never served you. The most dangerous form of laziness is disguised as busyness, doing things that don't move you forward but make you feel productive. That's how mediocrity wins. Not with one big failure, but with 1,000 small distractions that steal your focus daily. Time is your most valuable currency, and how you spend it reflects who you are becoming. Do your hours reflect ambition or avoidance? Are your mornings built with intention or just repetition? Because the person who owns their time owns their life. Winners audit their time like millionaires audit their money. They don't waste it on meaningless conversations, pointless debates, or scrolling into mental decay. They invest it into books, into workouts, into silence, into skills, into strategy. Every minute is calculated. Every hour is a brick in the empire they're building. And the more control you take over your time, the more control you take over your destiny. But let's talk about focus, because even if you have the time, if your focus is fractured, your results will be too. In today's world, your attention is a battlefield. Apps, ads, platforms, they are all engineered to steal your focus, hijack your dopamine, and keep you distracted. Every time you let your focus scatter, you lose momentum. And momentum is everything. It's the silent force that makes hard things easier. But it only comes from deep, uninterrupted work, not multitasking, not reacting to every notification. Real power comes when you learn to lock in, when you train your brain to block the noise and attack the target with tunnel vision. That's what separates the average from the elite. Most people can't focus for 5 minutes without checking their phone, and they wonder why they never finish what they start. But the elite, they build rituals around focus. They protect their energy. They say no more than they say yes, because they know that where focus goes, results grow. Attention is your weapon, but only if it's aimed with purpose. You can't hit a target you can't see, and you can't win a game you're too distracted to play. Every great empire was built by someone who knew how to lock in while everyone else drifted. Every transformation starts the moment you decide that your future is worth more than your distractions.